All right, we are going to go ahead and get rolling. So, in the last week, I have helped at least 3 or 4 of you guys with my listing that I have for my seller is not moving. What do I do? So that's what we're going to talk about today. All right. So the market has been pretty interesting lately in terms of sellers. Um, what do you guys are? What are you all seeing in terms of the sellers market? Are homes selling quickly? Are they taking a longer amount of time? What are you guys experiencing out there? Make sure you take yourself off mute if you would like to interact.
More days on the market, but also multiple offers.
Yeah, it's kind of I don't know it's kind of a split. There's like this dichotomy within the market right now, and what I would say is homes that are cream puffs, nice homes that are going to be highly sought after and in demand, moving like wildfire, multiple offers, very quick days on the market. Then you have your average run of the mill, normal median household with a little bit less demand, maybe a home that needs a little bit of work, needs a little bit of updating. In this market, those homes are staying on the market much longer. So this is a strategy that you may need to employ with not your cream puff listings, but the ones that are a little bit more run of the mill, day to day average listings. Okay. So the process of getting a price reduction or a price adjustment, a price improvement is something that has to be earned, not given. It's not, well, my seller hasn't authorized me to do a price reduction yet. No, you haven't convinced your seller of the need for a price reduction yet. They're not driving the bus. You're driving the bus. You are making recommendations based off of your knowledge of what your seller's objectives are, what they're trying to accomplish, and what the market conditions are. Okay, that's key. So we are going to launch right into how to earn a price reduction, not be given one, but how to earn one and how to use cold, hard, objective data, reports, and a handful of very selective scripts to be able to convince your seller of this action as it stands right now. And as a proof of concept, I'm going to let you know I have 2 listings active right now. One of them is pending. The other one that is active, I literally just got a price reduction of $10,000 about 30 minutes ago. So this stuff works. All right. That helps. All right. So I am going to share my screen and we are going to launch right into the presentation. Hang on just a second. Let me get my screens up and running. All right, y'all looking at the PowerPoint, how to earn a price adjustment? Thank you. All right. So first order of business, a reduction is not something that is given, it is earned. I already opened with that, so I'm going to skip right around. And the terminology on a price adjustment is key. It is not a price reduction. Avoid the language of reduction. It might have a negative connotation. A price adjustment, or in some cases, a price improvement is better language to use than a price reduction. Okay, it's semantics, but it's important.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all agree with me there?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So the best time to be talking about a price adjustment is not after you've been on the market for 3 weeks and nothing is happening. The best time to talk about a price adjustment is actually at the time when you're taking the listing and even before you go on the market. All right. You want to set expectations. You want to set the criteria by which we can measure how well we've done our jobs here. All right. So you want to establish the criteria, and the criteria is if we have priced your home appropriately to the market conditions and we have responded to the market conditions, the criteria we should be looking for is we should receive 3 to 5 showings per week consistently. And for every 10 to 15 showings we receive, we should then receive an offer. Okay. These two things are universal. I literally talk about these at every listing with every listing appointment. All right. And the conclusion after you've delivered those two criteria is if we are not meeting either one of these two, then that is an indicator that the market is rejecting our price or the market is rejecting our listing in one way, shape, or form, and we need to do a course correction. Okay.
Mhm.
Everybody good with the language so far?
Yes.
All right. The other things that it could be besides just the price is, you know, we could have some poor photography, we could have some poor marketing, we could have bad exposure. You want to address those, but the reality of it is clearly it's not any of those things because I'm an awesome realtor and I'm in an awesome brokerage and we have great marketing, we have great photography, and I would never do you harm that way. So in most cases, it is going to be the price that is going to be the issue why a home is not selling. All right.
Mhm.
So this is a great time to have this conversation too, is what your role is in this entire home pricing equation when you're listing the home. Your role is pretty simple. One, I want to get you the best possible deal on the home. So in other words, I want to get you the most house for the least amount of money. Okay. But that can be taken to the extreme because at the same time you're trying to do that, you're also trying to make sure that you have the highest probability of selling the home quickly and getting it to the closing table with the least amount of risk and the least amount of problems. All right. So you could say, well, I want to get you the best possible deal on the house, and you could end up rejecting a price that is reasonable, but then you would never get it to the closing table. Simple. So these two things can be in competition with each other. They are inversely proportionate. Getting you the best possible deal may also be the thing that prevents you from getting to the closing table. The thing that gets you to the closing table with ease may not net you the most amount of money. Pretty simple concept, but it's important. All right, so here is your scripting as you're having this conversation. Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you know, there is a common myth that the real estate agents or myself and the co-op agents of the listing, that we're the ones that are actually setting the selling price of your house. That is an absolute myth. I don't set the selling price. Frankly, Mr. Seller, neither do you. Ultimately, who is determining what the price of a home is going to sell for?
Market.
Bingo. Ultimately, it is the market is ultimately going to be the determining factor of what is the selling price of your home. My job in this equation as your agent is to use the skills, experience, the resources, all of those tools that I have to be able to predict the price that the market is most likely to react to favorably. Okay. So this is where this is your value proposition to your client. There are tons of for sale by owners that are wishing that they had somebody that could give them this kind of advice of using their skills and their experience and the tools that we have to be able to predict what the market is going to do. They would love that kind of advice, but that are not willing to pay for it. Okay. All right. So another scripting, another way to have this conversation with your clients is there are 3 keys to getting a home sold. And they are: 1, location. Can you change the location of a home? You sure can't. So location, condition, and price. So location, you can't change. Condition, yeah, you can change. You could renovate, you could do updates, but that is going to be difficult and often expensive to change, and most sellers are not really in that position to be able to do so. And the third factor that is a key to selling a home is the price. Which of these three things is the easiest thing to make adjustments to?
Price.
Absolutely. All right. And if the market is not responding to the listing, the easiest, fastest way to react to it is to adjust the price. What do you do if your client is not open to a discussion about a price adjustment at the early stages of the listing? What if you have a client that has said, no, my price is $400, I'm not going to take a dime less? How do you handle those situations? Sasha, what about you? How do you handle those situations?
I would tell them, okay, and I did ask you about this before because I was advised to do this. It haven't happened to me, but I would take this advice. I would have it in the contract that for every week the home doesn't sell, you're willing to drop it $1,000. So we'll start at the price that you don't want to take a penny less for. However, the house sells for what someone is going to buy it for. And we don't want to have it on the market for too many days and people start to think something's wrong with the home. So if you'll agree to dropping it $1,000 every week that it doesn't sell, I'll agree to your list price.
There you go. Listen to this girl. She's a professional agent. I totally agree. And I'm getting down to the third one, or the last one down here is right there. She just said it. So first off, if they don't win it, if they don't want to talk about a price, if they're going to be that hard nosed on pricing, honestly, my first order of business is I'd think twice about taking the listing. I mean, I'm in the position where I can reject a listing. Many of you in this, being new to this industry may not be in that position, but you may want to seriously think twice about whether or not you want to do business with somebody. If you're going to invest 6 months into listing their home and they're not going to be flexible on the price, and you're going to waste 6 months of your effort and time, you may want to think twice. The other alternative that Sasha didn't mention, what we're going to get to here in just a second, is consider maybe recommending a pre-listing appraisal. A pre-listing appraisal can be a very, very effective technique. Has anybody ever done it before?
I did on my last home. On my last home that I sold in Covington, she got an appraisal. And that's why when we were in the multiple offer situation and she was getting cash deals, they weren't even offering what it appraised for. I think it sold for $1,000 over the appraisal price.
There you go. So you can absolutely do this. This is a rare situation for me personally when I might recommend a pre-listing appraisal, but it's typically when I'm not doing an effective job of convincing my client that my number is the right number. If they're just hard-nosed, no, this is the right number because that's what Zillow's estimate is. Y'all with me there? If they're hard-nosed that that's the number, then I might recommend, okay, you know what? Don't take my word for it that the number that your home is going to sell for is not 400, it's 380. Let's get a professional opinion. Let's get a pre-listing appraisal. And here's a very quick and simple script. The pre-listing appraisal is something that there's going to be a cost associated with that. I, as your agent, can't absorb that cost, but I would recommend that you do so. But here's the promise that I would make. If you do the pre-listing appraisal and you list the home for at or below the value of the appraisal on the report, I will reimburse you the cost of that $400 or $500 appraisal at the closing table out of the commission check. So if they're like, yeah, I could do a listing appraisal, and then you say, well, it's going to cost $400 to $500. You know what? Let's take that off the table. I'll reimburse you for it at the closing table if you list it at or below that price. Everybody with me on that? Mm-hmm. Okay. And the last one was exactly what Sasha recommended. Let me get back to my slides. Is consider writing a price adjustment schedule into your listing agreement. Am I sharing the right screen? Are y'all looking at the right screen again?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I didn't have my little outline on it. And that is simple. On the listing agreement under the special steps, you write in a schedule and say, listing price, original list price is X. Seller will do a price adjustment at the following intervals of X amount on the X dates. Okay. Very, very effective. All right, so here is my thing though. When you're going to back to your client and you are trying to earn that adjustment, so everything that we talked about up until now was kind of the setting the precedents and setting the expectations at the listing process. Now we're actually having this conversation with your seller after the home has been live and it is either not getting the traction or not getting the response that you're wanting. Here's how you go about getting that price adjustment. This is really key. Earning that price adjustment is a data-driven process. You do not make decisions based off of guesses or speculation. You make your recommendations to your client based off of cold, hard, objective data. All right. You don't make decisions and guesses. You don't look things up and eyeball them and thumbnail them and go, yeah, that looks about right. That is not what we do here. We base our recommendations on cold, hard, objective data. And what is that data? Where do we get it? Here are the keys to getting a price adjustment and being able to justify it with data. All right. The first one is you schedule or that you present your showing time listing activity report. And the feedback that you're getting on that listing activity report is absolutely key. Does this look familiar to everybody? This is on your showing time system and it is under your listing reports. And this shows you all of the traffic that you can get on your home. All right, it is a fabulous report. You want to use it to actively solicit feedback from all of the agents that have shown your listing. Okay, if you're not going to get the feedback organically, which I hate to break everybody's bubble, you know what? Let me take you off of the screen to emphasize this point. I hope and pray that you are leaving feedback on the homes that you show to your buyer clients, because when you have a listing, you're going to thrive on the feedback that you receive. And unfortunately, our peers in this industry in Metro Atlanta have a pretty bad track record of leaving feedback organically through the showing time system. We are lazy, we get busy, we show 6, 7 homes in a day, and by the time you get home, the last thing you want to do is sit down and leave feedback on it.
Feedback.
So I'm going to mute somebody. I'm not getting feedback on the phone there. But yes, so leave your feedback and actively solicit feedback when it's on your listings. But I'm going to tell you probably somewhere around 40 to 50% of the showings that you will have on your listing will get feedback filled out organically. So that means you're going to have to do a better job of soliciting that feedback actively instead of just waiting for it to come in. All right, so that's why I strongly recommend that you use the showing time system to be able to do that. And I think I've shown some folks how to do this recently. Maybe we can do that at another time. But you can fill out the showing time feedback survey form for the client, for the agent, and publish it to the seller. What this does is it allows all of your feedback to be consolidated into one place. I am not a big fan of calling the agent for that feedback and then just turning around and calling your seller to say, here's what the agent's feedback was. Because what happens is that information ends up getting filtered. You might have a tendency to sugarcoat what the agent told you when you were talking to them. So that's why I like to get that feedback organically or put it in writing through the showing time feedback report, because it's not filtered through you. And the feedback that you get on it should be shared in a timely fashion. So not waiting for 3 weeks after the showing took place to try to call the agent to get that feedback. Everybody with me? Okay, so the showing time and listing activity report is a great report to bring data to the table to show your client exactly what is going on with their listing. To that end, let me actually pull one up for you to show you the full-blown listing activity report. So this is what the entire report actually looks like. So you can see right off how many showings that you have gotten. Here's where you can show them, okay, remember we were talking about 1 to 3 or 3 to 5 showings per week. Our very first week, which was the 19th of March, we had 10 showings. Second week, we had 10 showings. Third week, we ended up with 3. And then the fourth week, we ended up going under contract. So we were pretty quick in going under contract. But this is how you can show and track. Remember that 3 to 5 showings per week? We did okay on these first 2 weeks. But if we were only seeing 1 or weeks with no showings, then it's time to react to that. All right. You can have this conversation with your client and say, let's talk about how many people liked the house. Did they, did not like? I had 3 of the feedbacks that we got said they did not like it. 1 said somewhat and 1 said very. This is good information to share with your client so that they understand how people are reacting. Don't like this, the overall look of the interior. Wow, that's kind of high. Okay. If you were the seller and you were getting this kind of feedback, no to considering offers. That might be an indicator of how the market is reacting. All right. Here's the actual survey results and the questions that were answered and how they were answered. Great information. Again, none of this gets filtered by you, so it's easy to share with your client. All right. And this is the way by which you can actually start getting that feedback by there. It didn't come across on the report, but you actually have a link right here to be able to fill out the survey for this agent as you're calling them to get this information. Okay. It's a great, great tool. Any questions on that? It might have been a little bit confusing.
So Jay, sometimes when I show something for someone else, I don't know how much to ask the clients, like, because it's not mine, so I don't want to be intrusive, but I'm the one getting the
feedback
yeah, right,
requests.
Because I made it. So then, yeah, sometimes it's just a little awkward for me because I don't want to.
Well, I mean, so when I'm showing a house, even if it's somebody, I'm doing a showing for someone else, I'm still going to ask them the question. So what do you think of this house? What is your feedback on the house? I always use a numbering system, and literally, Letitia knows this. She went with me a couple weeks back, and we showed 7 or 8 homes in one day. We used the feedback report, and after we walked out of every single house, I would say the questions. All right, what do you rate this one on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being no, thank you, not interested. 10 being I'd like to move in tomorrow. Where do you rate this home on the scale? And usually we'll get a 7, we'll get an 8, we'll get a 9, and in the course of that conversation, they'll tell me, well, I liked the layout, but the backyard's not going to work. This doesn't have the walkability that we were looking for in this neighborhood. That's the kind of feedback that you can then leave on your showing time feedback report. Make sense?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. So then the next piece of cold hard objective data that we can present to our clients to show that we are doing everything we can is the Century 21 Golden Ruler Report. Hopefully this looks a little familiar to you if you've had a listing lately. This is something that Century 21 automatically produces anytime you have a listing. It pulls this information from the MLS and it generates this report that you then then this gets sent to your client also, that shows all of the traffic that they're getting on all the various websites. You can see how many hits they're getting, how many of them are visitors, are new visitors, how many of them are repeat, what cities the people are searching from that are hitting your listing. Make sense? So this is where you can say, okay, if a client is saying, well, I don't know that my home is getting good exposure. Well, this is the report that shows we've had 9,511 property views since we went live on this one. My friend, you're getting the exposure you're looking for. We just haven't hit the right number yet if we haven't got an offer. Everybody good with me? All right, so a similar report to the Golden Ruler report is the List Hub report. It looks and is structured almost exactly the same. The Golden Ruler report is a Century 21 tool. The List Hub report is essentially the exact same data. It's just a tool that is through Georgia MLS, if anybody is interested in using that instead of what is available in Century 21. Like I said, pretty much the exact same thing. An additional piece of documentation that you can take and present to your client as you're having the conversation about that price adjustment is go back to the original CMA that you did for that property and present it in again with updated information. So you want to reflect any changes to homes that were maybe pending or they were active when you first presented the CMA to your client. Maybe now they have closed and they have given you an indication what the selling price would be closer to, and might be an indicator of how you can predict your selling price. Okay. And another great technique is if you're not selling and you want to try to get some additional information and support your argument that your home is overpriced, call some of the other listing agents that have some of the comps in your neighborhood and see how they're doing. See if they're getting any traffic. If one of them is priced much lower and they're getting a lot higher traffic, that is definitely a conversation that I would be having with my seller and saying, look, your neighbor down the street is 10,000 less than you and they've been getting consistent showing traffic. Okay. Then there is another tool, the Real Scout Test the Market tool. Produces a report that's also called the buyer demand report. So y'all see your Real Scout account, this little test the market. Have y'all seen this one before? It produces this report, okay? What you do is you go in and you say, all right, I'm pricing this home in this neighborhood at $375. This looks at the buyer demand that is going on in that neighborhood, and it tells you that if you priced it instead of $375, if you priced it around $356, in this case, you'd get about 2% more viewers or 2% wider buyer audience than you would if you priced it at $375. Conversely, if you price it higher at $393, you'd get 3% less viewers. Okay. To be honest with you, this particular report doesn't, for this particular address, which by the way is just a sample one that I did real quick, doesn't give you a whole lot of valuable data. But if this told you that a $5,000 price reduction would net you 10% more viewers on your web listing, then that's a smart decision to make. Everybody follow me with this?
Yes.
You got to be able to explain these reports to be able to get the effective result of convincing them that they need to adjust their price. Okay, and the last one, we just did a class on this about 2 weeks ago, is the absorption analysis report, which you can tell you a lot of information about what's going on with the listing. Particularly, I use the days on the market for the other comparable homes that are in the neighborhood and say, you know what, okay, we're at 40 days, the average home in this market is selling in 40 days, we're at 60 days. What's wrong with the equation here? We need to do something and we need to do it quickly. Okay? Everybody understand how the absorption analysis report works? All right. Last question. When should the price adjustment be made? Any opinions?
When it goes past the average days on market.
Yeah, that's actually that's fair. To be honest with you, as early as possible. I mean, you can do it within the first 2 to 3 weeks on the market. You can also have it driven by the criteria that we talked about. But you essentially want to make the price adjustments before the listing gets stale. Here's some scripting to have this conversation with your clients. You know what? After some time on the market without a price adjustment, buyers don't question the price of the home. They're not asking, is the home priced right or not? They're assuming that if it's been on the market for this long, something must be wrong with the house. They're not contributing it to the fact that the seller isn't flexible on their pricing. They're thinking there's something wrong with the house and I'm probably going to avoid it. And agents will also assume that any seller who refuses to make a price adjustment will likely be a difficult person to negotiate with, if they are able to finally strike a deal with them. So you don't want to be the agent or the seller that nobody wants to do a deal with. All right. And then the next question is, how much do you reduce? What is your recommendation for a reduction in terms of value? Do you think there's any guidelines on this? What's your experience been, everybody? I'll tell you, in my experience, small amounts of anything less than $1,000 are pretty much meaningless and generally are not going to be effective at all. All right. So I typically start with my recommendations of doing a price reduction, not on necessarily a set value, but more so on a percentage of the sales price. So I would start around 1%, and maybe even go as high as 3%, depending on the situation. All right. And here's another script with your client is anytime you do a price reductions, all of the syndicated sites, the MLS, everybody basically rewards the price reduction in their computer algorithms by giving you increased visibility. So inevitably, you will see a spike in showing activity, in visibility, in your list hub reports. You'll see a lot more traffic on a home immediately after a price reduction has taken place. And you can tell your clients, I predict that if we make a $5,000 price reduction, we're going to see a whole bunch more showing activity this week. And the more eyeballs on your listing equals a quicker sale. So why would we not want to do something that's going to get you increased visibility? All right. And they don't reward small price reductions. These agents that'll do $100 price reductions every day for every day of the listing, that's stupid. It's an ineffective strategy. It's easier to go with one or two big price adjustments throughout instead of daily $100 price reductions. All right, to get the maximum benefit and the traction out of the price reduction, I recommend a reduction of this percentage, whatever your recommendation is. And how often to reduce? Essentially as many times as possible until the home actually sells. Simple, quick, dirty, to the point, and I went 5 minutes over, and I apologize that. What questions do you have, everybody?
I have a question.
Yes, Miss Sasha.
So sometimes, like, what if you feel like you want the seller to get an inspection on the house, a pre-inspection on the house, because you feel like the price that they're asking for is not realistic with the things that you can physically see that needs to be repaired. And like, you're basically trying to tell them, okay, if you get an inspection on the house and at least you know what's going on with it up front, and can kind of cost estimate what that repairs would be, then base the price off of minusing those repairs if you want to sell it as is. Like, I guess my question is, how do you convince them that that's the right thing to do for the price adjustment?
I think the best thing is to convince them to price the home according to the condition that it is in, not the condition that the comps are in. Price it to the condition that your home is in. Generally speaking, there are some agents that do use the strategy of doing an inspection up front. And I might recommend that if I knew that there was going to be something that was going to be major. Maybe the roof was bad, or there was a foundation issue or something like that, and you pretty much knew that that was going to be an issue with FHA or VA funding, or any buyer is going to have an issue with those pretty much. So you might want to recommend it in those situations so that you at least know what you're getting into, and for disclosure reasons, you're disclosing the material facts. But generally speaking, I don't recommend an inspection, because the inspector is going to find everything. And even if your seller fixed everything on there, the buyer's inspector pretty much has to find something for the seller to repair in order to justify their existence on the planet. So it's nearly impossible to fix everything or recommend everything to be fixed prior to actually listing the home. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question, Jay.
Yes, sir.
So we talked about price reductions today, but is there any scenario where you have to increase the price instead? Because I think I have seen some homes on Zillow which just show price increments, and this is more for FSBOs. But when does that happen, or if it really does happen?
Sometimes you will see a price increase when there has been a data entry error. I actually saw one yesterday that was, literally like $900 difference because somebody didn't do the $355,900 instead of an even number. That is a rare circumstance. To be honest with you, as an agent, the only time I would ever do a price increase is when there has been a significant change in the home itself. Maybe they did some significant repairs. Maybe they had that roof replaced, and the home is now worth $10,000 more than it was before when they listed. Those are rare circumstances. And to be honest with you, there's honestly a negative connotation to a price increase showing on the MLS. So to be honest with you, instead of doing a price increase, I would do a refresh of the listing. Take that listing down, put a new listing back up with a new price. That gives a more positive image to the listing than doing a price increase. Okay?
Okay, that makes sense.
Great,
thank you.
Great question, though. All right, everybody, I went way over time. Apologies for that, but we've got some great information covered and some great questions. Thank you. Have a great day.